Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Here are the top stories we're tracking for you on Wednesday, the 4th of March. War criminals should be held accountable, UN tells Sri Lanka. Bangladeshi court upholds Zia's arrest after she fails to appear for trial. And loans to get cheaper as India's Apex Bank announces rate cuts. And now for all the details. New Delhi and Islamabad should start a new chapter in ties by working towards resolving all outstanding issues through dialogue. Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif has said. This comes as Indian Foreign Secretary S. Jaishankar completed his two-day visit to Pakistan.
Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif said both India and Pakistan should rise up to people's expectations and resolve all outstanding issues. Prime Minister Sharif made the remarks when Indian Foreign Secretary S. Jaishankar called him in Islamabad. Jaishankar, who arrived in the Pakistani capital on Tuesday, had a number of high-level engagements earlier in the day. In a first, he met his Pakistani counterpart Aizaz Ahmad Chaudhry 7 months after the previous talks were called off. Jaishankar said India's concerns, including cross-border terrorism from Pakistan, came up during the discussions.
We agreed to work together to find common ground and narrow differences. I reiterated our known concerns on cross-border terrorism, including on the Mumbai case. We agreed that ensuring peace and tranquility on the border was vital.
Pakistan Foreign Secretary Aizaz Ahmad Chaudhry said the two sides discussed ways to resolve outstanding bilateral issues.
My discussion with the Indian Foreign Secretary covered bilateral and regional issues of mutual concern and common interest, including the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. I told my Indian counterpart that the leadership and people of Pakistan were deeply attached to the cause of Jammu and Kashmir, and we need to make a concerted effort to resolve this dispute and indeed other disputes like Siachen, Sir Creek, and water issues that could also be addressed through dialogue.
Jaishankar's visit to Pakistan came as part of his four-nation SAARC tour. After completing his Islamabad visit, Jaishankar reached Afghan capital Kabul on Wednesday for the last leg of his tour. The visit is aimed at improving India's relations with its South Asian neighbours.
Bangladesh Nationalist Party Supremo Begum Khaleda Zia on Wednesday failed to appear before a trial court despite an arrest warrant. A legal team said Zia would not surrender before the court and will seek bail. The former Prime Minister, who is facing 2 graft charges, has been avoiding court proceedings for some time now, citing security concerns. Following her repeated absence from hearing, the court had issued an arrest warrant against her. Zia is facing trial in 2 cases related to siphoning off funds for an orphanage registered under the name of her late husband, Zia-ul Rahman. Her elder son and BNP Senior Vice President, Tariq Rahman, is also an accused in the case, which dates back to 2009. Pakistan is still dithering about banning the operations of Haqqani network in the country. Islamabad had in January said it will outlaw the militant outfit, which has been behind a number of attacks on NATO troops in Afghanistan.
Islamabad is still hesitating from formally banning the Haqqani network, Pakistan's ambassador to the US, Jalil Abbas Jilani, has said. He also claimed that the announcement could be made in a matter of weeks. Pakistan has said that the Haqqani network and Jamaat-ud-Dawa would be outlawed, but Islamabad changed its stand and said it would only freeze the assets of the JUD, headed by dreaded militant Hafiz Saeed. The Haqqanis, founded by Afghan warlord Jalaluddin Haqqani, has been blamed for some of the most high-profile attacks on foreign troops inside Afghanistan. The group, which is believed to be operating from its base in the Pak-Afghan border, was also behind the 2008 attack on the Indian mission in Kabul, which killed nearly 60 people.
Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal on Wednesday offered to resign as the national convener of the Aam Aadmi Party. The development comes as the ruling party in the national capital is going through a power struggle. According to reports, a section of the party's leadership wanted Kejriwal to leave the party's top post as they felt that AAP was becoming concentrated on one individual. At the same time, others have demanded senior leaders Yogendra Yadav and Prashant Bhushan to be removed from the party's Political Affairs Committee or anti-party activities. Both Yadav and Bhushan have, however, said they will continue to work for the party even if the AAP's national executive approves their removal from the high-powered committee. Kejriwal, who is facing health problems, is not attending the national executive meeting in New Delhi. United Nations has asked Sri Lanka's new government under President Maithripala Sirisena to ensure strong systems for holding people accountable in its war crimes probe. A report.
The United Nations urged Colombo to assure a proper framework for accountability in the war crimes probe. The UN asked the new Lankan government to include issues regarding land, detentions, disappearances and the military postures in civilian areas. During the meeting on Tuesday, UN Under-Secretary for Political Affairs Jeffrey Feltman said the investigations must meet international standards.
I have underscored in my meetings the expectations by the United Nations and by the international community that the government will, as it has promised, develop in the coming months a strong framework for accountability that meets international standards and norms and that is seen as credible across Sri Lanka.
The recent development comes as the island nation is carrying out its own investigations in the 3-decade-long civil war.
I would strongly encourage the government, as I did in my meetings, to use the time between now and September to have inclusive consultations that lead to the type of presentation in September in Geneva that will have credibility, that will live up to the expectations of the people of Sri Lanka. What I heard from the government was very encouraging.
Sri Lanka had last month asked for a delay in the release of a UN report on alleged war crimes to establish a new judicial mechanism to deal with the allegations. It has been facing a UN-monitored international probe into human rights violations committed by its army during the civil war against the liberation tigers of Tamil Eelam. According to UN and international rights groups, nearly 40,000 Tamil civilians were killed by Sri Lankan army in 2009.
Pakistan police has started penalizing parents refusing to vaccinate their children against polio. This comes after nearly 367,000 children reportedly missed out on receiving oral polio drops in the latest nationwide drive against the crippling disease.
Police in Pakistan's northwestern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa has arrested 517 parents so far in the past 2 days after they refused to vaccinate their children against polio. Police said the action was necessary because of the growing number of parents refusing the oral drops despite massive campaigns by the government.
पेशावर में चूँकि 10,000 से ज़्यादा रिफ्यूज़ल है जो मुख्तलिफ नेचर के हैं और इस पे हम कोशिश करें कि इन रिफ्यूज़ल को मतलब ख़त्म करें, लेकिन एक कैंपेन या 2 कैंपेन में तो ये ख़त्म नहीं हो सकता. It will take time. इस टाइम के लिए हम कोशिश करें कि शॉर्ट टाइम में इसको ख़त्म करें. तो मुख्तलिफ वजूहात की बिना पे डीसी साहब ने इसका ये हल निकाला कि अगर हम इन लोगों को अरेस्ट करें, जेल भेज.
Anti-polio drives repeatedly fail in Pakistan due to attacks on medical workers, remoteness of areas and a campaign against it by Islamic extremists. Extremist groups like the Pakistan Taliban, which have imposed a ban on the vaccinations, have repeatedly targeted volunteers, killing more than 60 people since 2012. This has resulted in crippling disease, which has been eliminated in most parts of the world, making a comeback in Pakistan. Out of the 359 instances of wild type 1 polio across the world in 2014, Pakistan accounted for 306 cases. The country has so far registered 9 cases this year.
India's Apex Bank on Wednesday surprised by lowering key repo rate by 25 basis points to 7.5%, its second rate cut in less than 2 months. Analysts believe the move is in sync with the government policies of lowering interest rates to boost growth. A report.
India's central bank has brought down its key policy rate by 25 basis points. This is the second time the RBI has made an unscheduled rate change this year, and it's the first time it's done so before market opens. Analysts say while the timing of the cut may have been a surprise, the action is certainly not.
The industry and the economy required it. The bigger angle is now this would increase the speed of the economy or growth of GDP.
The government is expected to spend and push up growth. Inflation is reasonably under control and may not be a concern unless oil prices increase sharply. The Reserve Bank of India's rate cut appears to give a seal of approval for Modi government's budget. It's in line with Modi's priority of boosting economic growth, even if it means tracking back on deficit targets.
The outlook for inflation, it's in the budget and in the economic survey, it's about 5 to 5.5%. And as long as those trends continue, the RBI itself has said that this is, in the January statement that this will be, it represents a shift in the monetary policy stance.
India's combined fiscal deficit will be lower because the government is transferring more funds to the states. For 2015, the deficit target has been pushed back to 3.9% from an initial aim of 3.6% and will help in lowering interest rates for individuals and corporate borrowers.
The Apex Bank's latest cut also reflected on the Indian markets, which hit record gains during the day. The benchmark Sensex surpassed its psychological level of 30,000 for the first time. Tracking momentum, the 50-share Nifty index also paired gains to mark a record high of 9,119.20. The closing, however, saw a different picture. The Sensex plunged 0.72%, ending at 29,380.73, and the Nifty shed 0.82% at 8,922.65. This came despite the cut by RBI being seen in helping to lower interest rate for individual and corporate borrowers, thus making home, auto and business loans cheaper. Vibrant colours, water pistols, balloons and traditional sweets. The festive mood has gripped India ahead of Holi. Take a look at how India prepares for the big festival.
With Holi just around the corner, India's northern city of Mathura, the birthplace of Lord Krishna, broke into a riot of colours and effervescence. Traditional songs echoed through the air as hundreds from across the nation came to be a part of the exuberance. Many performed Ras Leela or dances depicting Krishna's flirtatious interlude with the village maidens. Faithfuls believe the blue-skinned god personally comes here to play with them on Holi. Soaked up in festive fervour, revelers said they've not experienced anything of this sort ever before.
मैं आगरा से हूँ, यहाँ की होली मैंने कहीं नहीं देखी, मैं बहुत एंजॉय कर रही हूँ यहाँ पर। यहाँ बहुत मजा आया, कान्हा जी के जय श्री कृष्ण कान्हा जी की रासलीला बहुत आनंदमय थी, बहुत ज़्यादा मजा आया।
Celebratory spirit is no less colourful in northern Allahabad too. Residents are making a mad dash to the markets to do last-minute buying. From an array of herbal, scented and non-toxic colours to water balloons and different-shaped water guns, shops are wrapped in holy zeal. Traders said eco-friendly colours are in much demand this time.
Eco-friendly color इस बार लोगों की ज़्यादा डिमांड है और पिछले साल हर्बल कलर भी लोगों ने यूज़ किया है और इस साल भी हर्बल कलर ही ज़्यादा डिमांड है.
Northern Varanasi also came alive with a kaleidoscope of colours ahead of the big day. The hustle and bustle in markets was enough to pull shoppers to buy holy accessories. The Festival of Colours marks the end of winter season on the last full moon day of the lunar month of February-March. Bonfires known as Holika Dahan are lit on the night before the festival. The next morning will see India erupt in a riot of colours. Holi will be celebrated on Friday.
Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude, the top stories once again. War criminals should be held accountable, UN tells Sri Lanka. Bangladeshi court upholds Zia's arrest after she fails to appear for trial. And loans to get cheaper as India's Apex Bank announces rate cuts. Now, viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Good night.